Hey everyone, welcome to our jungle tier list, and this is as of patch 3.1, wherein I have placed all of the meta junglers and I will rate them from the best jungler to the worst jungler. And I will also provide explanations on why this jungler is in this certain place. So we have our tier list here from S to D. S is the highest, D is the lowest, and let's start. So Camilla has gotten a lot of nerfs, especially in the jungle, ever since her third skill got nerfed and the attack speed. Her clear has been very, very slow, but her kit is really still really strong. So I would still put her in the A tier, even though her ultimate got nerfed, her third skill got nerfed. She would really struggle in the early game, but once you get the Triforce out, your clears would be a lot faster. And I tried Divine Thunder, it's not good because her clears are super slow, but her catch potential is still really good. And especially in solo queue wherein you can easily gank people, especially if you have Camille. So I'll put her in A tier. Darius is a bit meta, but commonly not used. Still very good in the jungle. Can be used in situations where the opponents have a lot of tanks or Alistar. So you could stack your ultimate easily. And its utility with the portable third skill, very effective as well. But I'll be putting him in the B tier since his duel is not kinda hard. It requires a good team to pull off. Evelyn, one of the junglers that is not affected by the change. So if you read the patch 3.1, all of the champions with Smite have weaker basic attacks, and Eve relies on her spells for clearing rather than her basic attacks. So she's unaffected by his change, or she's affected by a really small bit. So I'd still put her on the A tier, higher than Camille, since she has a decent clear and she has a very strong mid to late game, especially in solo queue where people go in the side lanes, or you can pick off people really easily. The only problem with Evelyn is her early game's a bit slow, so you need to ramp up a bit. Once you get level 9, once you get 2 items, that's when you will really pop off. So that's the only thing that's preventing her from the S tier, is that her early game is a bit slow. So next is Amumu. Amumu, I think, is a very weak jungler at the moment, from high elo to low elo. His clear is decent, but his team fight is strong, but it can easily be countered by Tenacity and Merc Tread, so I'll be putting him in C tier. Weak duels, very team reliant, as well as can't carry games. You need a good team. You can't solo carry a game unlike the other junglers. So Fiora, she got some nerfs as well in the jungle, but I think she's still really strong with her dueling capacity, similar to the other junglers discussed earlier. Her early game duel is strong, but her team fighting is a bit lackluster. But once she gets her items, she's able to get 2 or 3 items, she would be able to split push, and her team fight effectiveness will go really high. So saying that, I'll put her here before Camille and after Eve in the A tier, since her kit is generally really good for solo queue, and the problem is that she has a high skill cap and you need to practice her a lot so you could use her effectively. So next, Phys Jungle, she got nerfed. This Phys Jungle was kind of a thing in the patches before, but Phys got nerfed in the recent patch, so he also got nerfed in the jungle, so I'll be putting him below Amumu. But there are some instances where Fizz can shine, and it's the instances where he's able to get a good early game. So if you're able to get a good early game snowball, you could probably carry the games with Fizz Jungle. So Graves got a buff on his first skill, really good dueling, strong clear, healthy clear, decent objectives. The only thing that's hard about him is his ganks are a bit weak, and his mid game is a bit weak as well, because Graves needs 3 items to go online, but I think he can carry a game once he gets his items. The only problem is that he needs a front line as well as a good early game, his team not to be behind before he becomes online. So I'll be putting him in the A tier, right after Fiora. Still a really strong champion overall. So next, Irelia. Irelia Jungle, you haven't seen her much, but the problem with Irelia Jungle is she's a bit of an all-in champion. She's really strong when she gets ahead. Her clear is good. The only problem is she is similar to champions like Fiora, Riven, and all-in champion, kind of squishy. and team reliant because you can't initiate by yourself. You need your team to go first and you will serve as a follow-up damage. So I'll put her in the B tier above Darius since she still needs to ramp up. Unlike Fiora, Irelia is a bit more of an all-in champion. So next is Jarvan, tank slash damage. So you could go for Thunder Cleaver on this champion. A lot of utility. He can be a tank, he can be damage. He has decent clear. His duel is okay. His team fighting is okay as well. But the only problem with Jarvan is that he's a bit of a team reliant champion wherein you can't solo carry 1v9 the game. And in solo queue, 1v9 champions are very, very important. So he's good all around, but he has no specialty. Basically, he's a jack of all trades. So with that, I'll be putting him in the B tier, right above Irelia, since he can do everything, but he doesn't specialize in anything. Jax, in the recent patches, he got nerfed, but he's still really strong. Strong duel. He can carry the game in the late game. His clear is decent, and he's very tanky as well. So with all of that, champions like this go into the S tier. If there's a problem with Jax, is that his early game is a bit slow, but once you get the Triforce, things will be a lot easier. And if you're able to get a snowball early, it's basically sure win if you have a Jax on your team. He can do everything in the late game. He can tank, he can initiate, he can burst, he can DPS, he can split push. His team fighting is strong, and he has everything a jungle needs once he gets his items. So next, Jace Jungle, we don't see this much, but he is generally very strong jungle as well. He has a lot of poke. He has decent clear. His duels are good. The only thing that he needs is a bit of items and a good early game. Jace Jungle is a really bad pick if he falls behind, but is a strong pick when ahead. So with that, I will put him on the A tier, right below Camille. Kha'Zix, a really strong jungler of this as of this patch, a really good champion as well in solo queue. Can solo kill a lot of champions, especially when isolated. Only thing that's the problem with Kha'Zix is that he's squishy, and his team fights are not as effective as compared to other junglers. But generally, he's a really strong jungler in solo queue, so I would be putting him in the A tier above Eve. Once Kha'Zix is level 5, he has a huge power spike, and once he gets his items, he can one shot. The only problem is if he can't carry the game 1v9 because you need a team to initiate for you. So next, Lee Sin. I think Lee Sin, kind of an obvious pick. We put him in the S tier. He has everything. He has strong early game, strong duel. He can easily take objectives. He can go tanky. He has mobility. He has everything that you need. The only problem is that he has a high skill cap. So the reason why he's not as effective in low ELO as compared to high ELO or high ranks compared to low ranks is that in low ranks is that people don't know how to use Lee Sin properly. But once you master Lee Sin, he is your go-to carry champion, blind pickable champion against anyone. He has no hard counter. Next up, Master Yi 3.1. His Alpha Strike got buffed by a lot. What this does is that it made his kit better. He made his clear better, his dueling better, his objective taking better, and his scaling way better. And his team fights even better. So with that, we have a new S tier champions. Before, Master Yi would be at least a B tier because he is very squishy and easy to pick off. But with the Alpha Strike changes, if you're able to master how to use the Alpha Strike properly, you could use it to dodge skills. Your damage input is increased. Even though you don't have your items yet, you still have a lot of damage in your kit because of the Alpha Strike. And once you get your items, it will become more OP, especially in team fights. When you get your resets, and you can easily 1v9 the game. So you just need to escape the early game a bit. Once you get 1 or 2 items, you get team fight reset. You could basically carry the game. So next, Nunu. Tanky champion. For me, this Nunu is the best tank champion right now in the meta. Good ganks, good clear, good CC, tanky, and a lot of protection for your carries. So with that, I'll put Nunu in the A tier. Really good pick as well. But the only problem is that you can't carry with Nunu. You need a team behind you. Aside from that, he can do everything. Good objectives, CC, ganking, etc. Olaf. So Olaf is a 50-50 pick for me. Either you're very strong with him or Feast or Famine champion. He can be either very OP, or he can be useless. So it's a 50-50 champion. It all depends on your early game. If you're able to utilize him properly, he can be very strong. You can 1v9 the game, but if you're not able to get the lead that you need, you'll just be a tank, a sitting duck, and people will just burst you once you use your ulti. So with that, I'll be putting him still in the A tier, but this is more on the players that can use him properly. And he's strong against a lot of meta picks right now, which has a lot of CC. So Pantheon, I think this is one of the more underrated junglers in the meta right now. Very suited for solo queue since he has good ganking, he has strong burst. But the only problem with this that he's a early game champion, wherein he is very strong in the first 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, he falls off really hard and you basically become a CC bot or a ganking tool for the side lanes. So with that, I'll still put him in the A tier, right above Nunu, since he is one of the best early game picks right now. So next is Ramos, nerfed a lot. I think he was still decent in low ranks, but in high ranks he's kind of useless right now, since there are a lot of other tank junglers that can do everything that he does in a better way. So he lacks damage, his clear is slow, he has good ganking potential and good tank, but if you're not able to get ahead, you'll really have a hard time. So with that, I think he's going to be our first D tier champion. Even Amumu can do almost everything better than Ramos except for the early ganks. So next, Rengar. Rengar got adjusted because of the changes, especially with the charge blade. So you wouldn't see much charge blade Rengar second item anymore. So the build has been adjusted from more of a burst type Rengar to a bruiser type Rengar with a cleaver sunder, wherein this would make Rengar tanky as well as given a lot of damage. So he can still do a lot. He can tank, he can initiate, he has good clear, objective taking. With that, I'll put him in right on top of the A tier. The only thing that's different from him, from the top 3 junglers, is that he needs a team around him. You can't carry the game 1v9. He's a bit of team reliant. Because in the later stages of the game, you wouldn't be able to burst anyone because they all have stasis, or when they're grouped up. When they're grouped up, you would have a hard time in the team fights. So next is Riven, another charge blade user that got affected. Still viable on her the third item, but the Death's Dance is really good for her. Overall, she can do everything. She can stun, initiate, and CC properly. She has good skirmishing, dual potential. I'd put her in the S tier since she could 1v9 the game. But she's actually the S. I'll put her in S tier. The reason of which is that she can do everything a jungler needs to do. Wherein you need to have good objective control. She has that with the ulti smite. You have good wave clear. You have good duels. You can initiate fights as well. You're a bit tanky with her build. The only problem is that she's a high skill cap champion where you can't master her. You can't use her just because you want to. So she needs a lot of practice in order to become effective. So Seth, another great tank jungler, very underrated as well. People always put Seth on the top lane or the support, but Seth is a great jungler as well, especially with the new changes of the Black Cleaver Sunder. Very good for him. And his jungle clear is actually really fast. And he actually got nerfed because his jungle clear was fast, but it's still really good. So with that, I'll put him in the A tier, one of the better tank junglers as well. I think right beside Nunu. Because the only problem is that, similar to Nunu, tank junglers can't carry the game and you need a team behind you in order to make things happen. But still, a solid jungle around. So next, Xin Jungle, another tank jungler. The only problem with this that he is ulti reliant. So in the early game, his clear is very slow as compared with the meta junglers. But when he gets his level 5 and when his ulti is up, you can easily split push and respond to your team. The only problem is that you can't start objectives because you're the jungler and he's more of a counter initiate type of champion. So you need the opponents to start the objective first before you can ulti in, because if you use Shen and you start the objective, your ulti is not that utilized as compared if he's in the Baron lane or support wherein you can split push while you're starting the objective. With that, I'll put him in the B tier. It's kind of hard to use, but if used well, he can help your team get the win. So Shyvana, another strong champion, good clear, good objective takes. The only problem is that she needs time to scale. She lacks a lot crowd control, and she's more of a win more champion. She's good if your team is winning, but if your team is behind, she'll also be affected as well because you don't have the tools to carry your team. Your ganking is a bit weak. So if you're able to farm properly, your team is able to create space for you. She's a really good jungler, but if you're behind, she wouldn't be as effective. So with that, I'll put her in the B tier above Jarvan since she can carry the games, but yeah, the only problem is that when you're not in a winning position, that's when she's also gonna have a hard time. So Tryndamere, this champion is really good in low ranks. So when I mean low ranks, below Emerald, so gold below, Tryndamere is a very good pick because a lot of people don't respect this champion. He has good scaling, his clear is okay, he can split push. The only thing he needs is that he needs items, and the problem with Tryndamere in the higher ranks is that the other junglers won't let him scale as well, especially his early game. He can't do much in the early game because you don't have much damage. So I will be putting him in the B tier, right above Shyvana since he's good in the low ranks, but has a hard time in the high ranks. So Wukong Jungle, next. Great team fight. A bit of a weak clear. Good CC. Weak duels. So with that, I'll put Wukong in the B tier, right below Jarvan. Wukong's team fight is really strong, and it's something you need to capitalize on because if you don't have ulti, especially in the early game, you're useless. When you use jungle Wukong, you need to make your ultimate count every time because that's your way in order to help your team as well as get your items faster. Since your clear is very slow, and what's nice about Wukong is that the Cleaver Sunder works on him as well. So last jungler that we will talk about is Xin Zhao. Xin Zhao got a bit of a buff in patch 3.1. I think he's back in the meta, especially with the Cleaver Sunder changes, looking really good. He's also he's actually very tanky as well, especially with the ulti. The only problem is that his dueling is a bit weak, and if he goes behind, he doesn't have a strong late game, unlike the other meta junglers that can easily carry the game. So with that, I'll put him in the A tier, in a good spot right now, but it's not enough to put him in the S tier. So that's it. So if you agree or disagree with my tier list, feel free to comment down below, and I will try my best to reply in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing so I can keep making content like this, and that is it for me. So hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Ciao, ciao! I'm finally facing it all, fearless.